morning, everyone, and thank you for your presentations here. I'm presuming what you're talking about are very similar, the two programmes here. Now, I mean, I talk to parents all the time. They contact me, often very distressed, because their child is hurting him or herself or lashing out at other members of the family. Maybe they're tearing their clothes, maybe they're eating their clothes, and they're crying out for help, and they don't know how to help their child, or they don't know how to help the rest of the family. The CDNT, all the CDNTs are established, but because they're understaffed, they're being told, oh, your child's on a waiting list and they will be seen in 2024 or 2025 for speech and language therapy or occupational therapy or so forth. So I'm just wondering, I mean, these are proven programmes here that work. Have the HSE shown any interest in them and replicating them? Do they work as part of CDNTs or in conjunction with CDNTs? How are you funded, actually, as well? Because you're a charitable, so are you funded in part by the HSE, or is it purely fundraising that you have to do? Because it just sounds to me like it's just common sense. If you have a proven track record of working with families and you have the evidence to back it up, why is this not being replicated throughout the country? Because there are just so many families out there crying out for help. So I'm just wondering, how much interaction there's been with the HSE. Are they thinking of rolling this out? You say it's part of Sláintecare now, so but is that? I'm just kind of trying to figure out, is this in conjunction with CDNTs? Because parents tell me that through the CDNT, the only kind of support they get are online parenting programs, but they say they're very general. They're not specific to their child. Every child is different, obviously. So some of the information is helpful, and parents will actually do any course that will actually help their child. But many times they're then said, oh, they're offered this course and they say, well, we've already done it. Oh, well, this is their support, and if you don't do it, we'll take your child off the list. There's this kind of attitude. So I'm just wondering how it fits in with the CDNT, and if it's going to be something that's replicated.
Deputy Tully, so there's a couple of questions in relation to our funding. So 70% of our income would be through selling our evidence-based training programmes to services across community health, education, disability, our supervision, outcome tracking packages, all of that. Okay. And the rest then we would raise ourselves. So we would have invested 90,000 of our reserves in development of the programme that I mentioned here, the Parents Plus Special Needs programme. That's for families raising a child with an intellectual disability 11 to 24, because the child could be going through adolescence earlier, but with intellectual disability, the child could still have those needs at 23 or 24. We also, through fundraising, secured through different sources 200,000 and used that to sponsor services across family resource centres, education, any service that was coming in contact with families with intellectual disability. So we are trying our best. We are probably one of the only charities in the country with such a significant impact that do not receive one service level agreement or arrangement or whatever you may call it. I have been knocking on doors, I have been contacting TDs, senators, everything. I actually don't know who to speak to. And all I kept getting told was that at the moment disability didn't fall under this person, it didn't fall under that person. We're not here to criticise today because I'm delighted to see Matt here. I think it's about us all coming together we have solutions. Yeah. In relation to what you talk about, those parents presenting to you, and I have extended family who've done the exact same thing, go to a TD because they're at their wits' end. The reason the programme was developed, and unfortunately today my colleague, Professor John Sherry, he's our clinical director, he says it succinctly. He said, doing the focus groups and developing this programme with families affected by intellectual disability and the services set up to support them, he said it was a humbling experience, what they're having to experience. And this is not to say families are worried that they'll be criticised, they're worried their child will be demonised, they're worried that they'll be excommunicated from the community because you might have, and Wayne and Niamh, can speak of this more validly than I can, but I'm just articulating the stories that were told to us. You have maybe sexual difficulties because the child doesn't understand they're in a public place, and maybe they masturbate and then they get, punch somebody. This is the stories that we've been told. Parents are really worried if they said anything to services, they'd be before TUSLA. Parents so isolated because their child is going on a bus to a school and they see nobody. So we developed the programme in response to those needs. The programme has all of the topics that the parents have decided they need. When you ask, is it relevant to the PPSN structure, it couldn't be more relevant. It supports and enhances all the principles of progressing disability in terms of family-centred practice, evidence-based. We, as a charity, are building the capacity of professional teams in terms of their ability to track outcomes, to evaluate. For me personally, and maybe I'm not going to help myself, but I hate waste. I hate waste of money. We set up as a charity so that we could provide these programmes at low cost so that they were affordable for all services. So from that perspective, absolutely, they fit in and support and enhance the delivery of progressing disability. As regards, I can't remember what, there was another question you asked me. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, I think there's a number of points that overlap, and then there'll be some differences. I tried to do some maths last night, so I can tell you that there are at least 4 Enable Ireland services that are using Stepping Stones. I think there are 12 HSE funded services that are using Stepping Stones Triple P. It's a little bit hard from the numbers. I reckon we're probably reaching about 3% of parents with a developmental disability. Okay. Over a 9-year period. So I think if you compare that to the Australian example I gave you, where within a relatively short period of time, 38% of parents did engage. And of course, not all parents will want to engage. Some parents will be, actually, I don't need this help and support. And we shouldn't be telling parents what to do. This is about empowering parents, encouraging their self-regulation, helping them set their own goals and for their own families. So I think, yes, these Stepping Stones fits perfectly with what the CDNTs are delivering. It's a shame in some ways that St Helena's weren't here, because, Deputy Ellis, you could probably also testify to this, because I think you've got a lovely partnership that's going on there. So obviously St Helena's is one of the family resource centres that is funded by TUSLA, and so you've got some PPFS staff there who are delivering Stepping Stones Triple P through the Family Resource Centre, which of course delivers a host of other services to families as well, normalising and destigmatising access to these sorts of services. Pamela herself would have told you she didn't come along initially to Triple P by doing Stepping Stones Triple P. She just did our kind of core programme, Group Triple P. During that process, it was identified that her son, who already had ADHD, could potentially have autism, and was referred onto the pathway for diagnosis. And at that point, the team were able to say, well, actually, we've got a specific programme for parents of children with additional needs. Mm-hmm. So she went on and did that. She subsequently told me on Monday night that she's going on to do our Fearless Triple P programme for parents of children with anxiety management challenges, because her son struggles with anxiety as well. And so I think putting it in that kind of family resource centre space, I think, is a really powerful thing. Of course, they're working closely with the CDNT. And so what I think, and of course, Better Finglass is involved in all of this too, in the ABC programme. So you're seeing a lovely 3-legged stool where you've got TUSLA, HSE, and you've got the voluntary community sector providing a range of services, embedded within which are services for children with disabilities. So yes, I think it is part of CDNTs, and I think my appeal would be that the responsibility for the provision of these programmes by CDNT should be highlighted. Whether they provide them directly, because in Finglass they're not providing them directly, they're being provided via TUSLA and via Bernardo's and some of the other voluntary sector providers, but they're working in partnership so that they can ensure that parents are getting access to these sorts of services. And I think that's really important in terms of the reach. And I think it does take this. The Australian example is the good one, because in exactly the same way as I think the issues in Ireland, what they're saying is this stuff takes investment and money in order to upskill staff. But actually, if we can then bring parents into that, these programmes, the other point we should probably make really clearly is, and this has been reported in the media quite a bit, these programmes are not a substitute for other services that the child with additional needs might need. This is not, you've had the parenting programme, now, go away. And there was a story in the Journal, wasn't there, about somebody referring to Nanny 911, and it will solve the problems that are going on. That's not the case. But actually, if you can bring the parent in and help the parent, that's the primary system in which the child exists. So if we can change the way that the parent is thinking about their child's behaviour, maybe thinking about antecedents. Again, Pamela gave a great example. She said, I've been telling my sister, with her son, she just gives him a chocolate bar to sort of shut him up when she feels he's being annoying. And I told her I did, you don't give him a chocolate bar to reward bad behaviour, you give him a chocolate bar when he's done something good. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wow, she got it. She picked up a very simple strategy that you can see is quite powerful in terms of rewarding misbehaviour or rewarding, and those things, there's other examples of children that refuse to use sign language to speak because their parents sometimes were getting caught in nurturance traps. That's no criticism of the parents. I think if you've got a parent with additional needs, that's the natural feeling of wanting to support your child. But actually by using stepping stones, we're able to just put some simple boundaries in, the child starts to communicate more effectively. And so you're seeing the child develop, and seeing developmental growth, as it were, in terms of their communication skills. So I think these programmes are really powerful, and if we can bring them effectively alongside those other services, physio, speech and language, that are still important for children with additional needs, then I think we can do, and we need to normalise and destigmatise parenting programmes for that. And actually there still is stigma associated with parenting programmes, less so for parents of children with additional needs, but there still is stigma. Still parents, we did some survey work in the UK, just as parents started school in September. Lots of issues they were concerned about, particularly post-COVID and all of the lockdown and what's going on in Ukraine, etc. 75% of the sample, though, said they felt there was stigma in them asking for help with their parenting, despite the fact that they could quite powerfully be supportive of.